Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safer for ADHDers. I'm a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I'm also the parent of a couple of ADHD kids. And as I've gotten more interested in all this ADHD stuff, I find that both my wife and I have significant family histories of ADHD. Today, I want to talk a little bit about ADHD and parenting an adult with ADHD. Uh, One of my listeners asked the question, and seems like it's kind of ripe to talk about. There are a lot of issues with ADHD. First of all, the the biggie is that you and your ADHD child have both grown up, grown older, matured, but the ADHD, you don't outgrow that. It stays with you. And there are two kinds of people who are adults with ADHD: those who've learned how to compensate for it, such as medication and all the different behavioral techniques and things that you can use to make up for, organization problems or being able to stay focused and all that sort of thing. And there are a bunch of those techniques, I mean. And like I said, medication, a lot of people swear by that. And of course, ADHDers tend to be a little bit ornery and independent, and a lot of them don't take the medication. So that's another issue. And then there are those folks who have not made a good adjustment to ADHD at all. I mean, and have not adapted or adjusted. And that gets to be, as adults, that gets to be problematic. Okay. They will, they have troubles with relationships, get frequently divorced or dumped, however you want to look at that. They have a lot of troubles with the steady employment. They get fired a lot. They're insubordinate and da 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 da. They also have some issues with frequently with the usual stuff: emotional impulsivity, or what do we call it? Emotional dysregulation. Okay, when it's chronic, and they a lot of times aren't good at holding their tongue, and they also have some troubles usually. Uh, any more. You don't just go to a job and that's the end of it. You have to be educating yourself continuously. And ADHDers who have not been well trained or whatever will have a lot more trouble with that. And a lot of the adaptation is, they've all got skills. All ADHD adults have some kind of skills, and as for some of them, their skills are above and beyond what the ordinary person has. They're usually terribly creative, and they're usually also pretty good problem solvers, real good, actually, problem solvers. They kind of come in and they say, whoa, that's not right. We got to do this and this and this, and then everything will be okay. And they are anyway. If they're in the right job, the job that lets them be creative or a job that lets them be the problem solver, they're in hog heaven and they are valuable employees. But a lot of job positions don't want that, don't want a creative problem solver who's a little bit ornery and independent. They want somebody who'll sit quietly, do his or her job for 40 hours or plus a week and not complain. And that's what they're looking for. And that is really not a good position for an ADHD adult to be in. The other thing that changes, well, there are some things that change, is what I mean, is you're no longer the boss man. You're no longer the boss woman. You're no longer, in charge like you were when they were kids and depended on you for everything. They're adults now, and they're adults who've had a little bit of a struggle. So they're a little porky sometimes. They're a little bit less likely to be comfortable around you, and they're maybe a little sensitized because they've had some experiences in their life that's not all that wonderful, and they're anyway they're they what we call rejection sensitive dysphoria. If you've not heard that terminology, it's pretty new, but basically it's that being really sensitive and as likely to take the wrong view of what you say or something like that. I mean, more likely to take offense at stuff that you think is just normal things. Okay, so you're in a tricky position. You're their parent. Life is not going that well for them, and somehow you're still linked together. Some people it's just they go off and you don't see them much for anymore. For some people, it's uh, they're right in the same town and that sort of thing. So you've got a continuing uh, issue. So your job now is more to be like a coach or just kind of, and what you're trying to do is encourage them to be independent and encourage them to uh, control the worst parts about having ADHD and develop. Hopefully, they have developed some skills in terms of dealing with it. But if they have totally not had treatment of any kind, they've not had a therapist or they've not had medication. I mean, therapy can do some things for you, can with or without medication, but it's smoothest if you've had them on medication. But then a lot of folks, when they get to a certain age, they want to stop that stuff. Why do I take a pill? I'm not sick, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to be supportive. You have to encourage them. Look for your moments when you can say, "Oh, hey, good job," that sort of thing, because that's what they're not getting a whole lot of in the world out there. And got to encourage them to learn and use the tricks that help them uh, compensate for some of the executive stuff and emotional stuff that they have troubles with. Um, there are so many software programs that make it easier for you to not miss appointments and make it easier for you to get to places on time and make it easier for you to put your to-do list in and you can pull it right out of your phone in a heartbeat. Uh, all those sort of things mean that you don't have to be quite the sort of neurotypical person that just remembers everything. Tell me to do this, and I've got it. Um, ADHDers tend to have working memory problems. Working memory is that type of memory where you aren't planning on remembering it for the rest of your life, but you're just remembering it until you get the job done. The boss says, "I want you to do this, this, and this," and you get this done, and then you can't remember what the other two thises were, and so you're in trouble. Okay, nowadays you can speak those orders into your cell phone and play them back when you forget about them. But the other thing about ADHD that's tricky is you have to look at your self concept, or you have to look at their self concept. Okay, a lot of kids who are adults now came up before we even had ADHD as a diagnosis. And so they didn't get the best treatment. There wasn't the best research done back, especially in the 70s or so. And now everybody knows about ADHD, and everybody knows that there are all kinds of things you need to do for ADHD, but it didn't used to be that way. And in spite of the fact that ADHD is a lot better known, you still get people who say, "Oh, I don't believe in that stuff. That doesn't exist. That's not real. That's just what I really hate hearing is, oh, that's because of bad parenting." I beg your cotton picking pardons there, fella. Um, I I have a couple of ADHD kids, and they did some things I'd rather they hadn't done, but it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my responsibility. And that's you got to separate how you feel about it from um, what's going on currently. I mean, being an ADHD parent, sometimes um, you're a little embarrassed, or sometimes you're a lot embarrassed, and sometimes you're wondering, did I do this? Did I do a good job? Did I screw up? That's did I miss something, neglect something I should have done? Well, you have to come to the notion that it's not your responsibility. It's not your fault. Mothers are always thinking, "Oh my gosh, did I do something wrong when I was pregnant? Did I mess up? Did I not get to the hospital right soon enough when I went into labor? Did I da 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 da?" There are all these what ifs and things that'll just drive you nuts. But your job now is you're just trying to coach. You're trying to find spots where you can encourage them. You're trying to find times when you can uh, be supportive, and but you're encouraging independence and organization stuff. And like I say, nowadays it's a lot easier to get a lot of these independent or these organization assistance. I mean, I don't know what AI is going to do to all this. I have no idea, but it's still when you are having troubles with attention, with organization, with a lot of the software programs can really, really help. AI, I don't know how far AI is going to take us. I'm not always sure I like it, but I can't not deny that it helps a lot. And well, what I call literature reviews, where you're looking back and what is this research piece and that stuff, and it's really great. And it can also just help. They don't have to be a scientist to use AI stuff, and it's real helpful. But anyway, so there are a couple of different areas you need to be supportive. You need to encourage independence and organization. They need to still they have problems with organization. They have problems with working memory. They have problems with executive function in general, time management, a sense of time passage. Uh, in this day and age, when the watch on your wrist will count your heartbeats, you probably ought to not have much trouble with that, but it's still, you've got to use it, and you've got to learn to use it, and you got to remember to use it. And that sometimes is uh, not easy. And then the other, because like I say, I mean, we're always, all of us are constantly evaluating ourselves and our performance, and are we measuring up to our expectations of ourselves? And your child is doing the same thing, and if things are not working out, they will tend to um, do a lot of self-downing kinds of things, self-critical kinds of things, and that's not really reasonable. And so your job as a coach to encourage them to be more independent, to take a better view of themselves, that they're still trying, that they're, the whole resilience training thing, is like, okay, this didn't work out very well, but what can you learn from that? That sort of thing. And that's going to be terribly important. And the other things, you've got to always remember that you need to respect their adult status. And the other, like I said before, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. On the other hand, you have to say what your requirements are, what your expectations are. I don't know, what the exact situation is, and the person who wrote in, but the exact situation. But if they're still living in your house, or they've moved back in, or something like that, which is increasingly common in this economy, you just have to say, okay, these are my expectations. And that's not sometimes, we're used to being able to, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Well, you've got to be a little more diplomatic, I guess, but you've got to be clear. Okay. The one thing that's a biggie that we haven't talked about yet is substance abuse. Okay. About 40% of all ADHDers will end up having a problem with alcohol, particularly. Okay. It's very common. When they first start drinking, it actually lifts their dopamine, which makes them feel better. They get a little bit more out of drinking than most of us do. Unfortunately, when you start to abuse alcohol, it starts to break down your nervous system's ability to process dopamine. So you end up worse off than you were before you started. Okay. And that's substance abuse. We all humans use substances of some sort, I guess, except Eskimos. And that's mostly because they can't make alcohol up there. But we all, I'm a big coffee hound. I like a fair amount of coffee, and I like the strong stuff, and I like it black, and I don't want any cream and sugar or any funny looking syrup or any of that stuff. I like the taste of coffee. And other people, well, love wine. And, as long as you drink it respecting its power, not a problem. But there are people who cannot drink that way. And a lot more of them are the ADHDers, who tend to have the ability to drink a lot more than most people. And that's not a good thing. It may get you some advantages when you're, in college or in high school. Well, excuse me, not high school, of course. No kid drinks in high school, but that you can drink more than the other guys. But that gets you into trouble. That gets you into trouble over time. So that's another thing you need to pay attention to. And you can set some restrictions on, look, okay, you've been through a treatment program. You're going to your meetings, but I don't expect you to come in sloshed, right? I don't expect you to be driving while you're intoxicated, and I don't expect you to be drinking. I expect you to be making a good faith effort to maintain sobriety. One of the things I haven't talked about yet is professional help. Okay. In this situation, even if substance abuse is not an issue, your young man or lady needs to be in some kind of treatment program. A coach or a psychotherapist is what you're looking for. And come to think of it, depending on how stressed out you're getting about all this, you maybe should be considering a therapist. And this is not me shilling for my profession, but you need uh, it can help, and it's not nothing to be ashamed of. Life is not so easy that all of us are waking up every morning. Oh, thank good to be alive. Some mornings, not so much. And if they get to be too many mornings in a row, you may think about looking for somebody to talk to. And if we're talking substance abuse, then there are, well, depending on what you need. I mean, there are people who are certified as substance abuse counselors, and you need to find one of those specifically if you've got a alcohol or drug problem. And sometimes you need to consider an inpatient program. And then there's usually some follow-on, and then there are support groups. AA is probably the best known of the support groups for alcoholism. But a lot of people who got hooked on painkillers will also go to AA meetings. It's the best known. There's such a thing as Narcotics Anonymous, but they're not nearly as likely to be around as AA is. And it's still, it was developed in the 1930s, and it's still an effective program. They keep making noises about needing to update the literature and so on, but it still is effective. But you shouldn't be ashamed of it, and you should, if the alcohol is the problem, you can insist that one of the things, if they're going to stay with you, they need to do is go to their meetings on a regular basis and keep it clean, and don't think you're going to come knocking on my door ripped out of your mind and get in. We will have problems. And it doesn't have to be in a hostile sort of situation. It just has to be, this is the way it is. These are the rules. These are the consequences, and state it like that in a very matter-of-fact way. If you have troubles, kind of keeping yourself cool, maybe you ought to let your spouse do this part. But okay, this is a complicated situation, and it's not, most of the time, it's not a real pleasant one. With the economy the way it is, and more young people are having troubles finding careers and even basic employment out there in the world. And what's happened recently has not made it any better. Who knows? More of us may be in the situation of having a adult child living with us. Hey, we adapt, we adjust, or we complain. Yeah, probably we still complain, but that's okay. Okay, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass. My website's terrygingrassphd.com. You get on there and you can you find a couple of things. You can sign up for my list, and we have a little bonus for you if you do. And then you can get my newsletter, and you can also have the ability to sign up for an intake interview. Just it's I forgot what we're calling them, but it's just a freebie meet and greet kind of thing, and we talk about what you're looking for in terms of some kind of coaching. And if we decide we could stand each other, we maybe work together for a while. I'm not wanting you to sign up for a lifetime of treatment, but anyway, we will see you next time. And like this gentleman did, or this person, I can't even remember what the name was, but if you see something you'd like to hear more about, if you have a problem that you would like me to discuss, and give you some advice and that sort of thing, um, feel free to shoot me an email or whatever the other words are. DM, is it? I don't know. Anyway, we'll catch you next time, and we'll do what we can to make the world safer for ADHD. See ya.